everyone, it's Amy and welcome back for the new Build Your Stash and Craft. I'm not sure what week this is going to be for the next few videos, or the videos before this. I really don't know. I'm making a bunch of videos trying to get them up, and I will put the number of the week number in the description box, so you'll know what week it is. I just don't know what week it is right now because I'm just trying to get as many done as I can. So today we are going to make paper ephemera holders, and this is a way that I do like to do it. And I got some new binders, and so I was going to make some for myself, and I thought that I would bring you along and show you how I make mine because I think it works out really well. And I'll show you a few things that don't necessarily work out that well that I forgot about until after I've already got mine done, but they still work. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is decide how big you want your pockets. So what we are going to do, I'll show you. This is the binders that I got. So these are small binders, and so you can adjust your paper holders. I forget what they call them. Page protectors. You can adjust them to any size by just cutting them, and taking into account where you're going to cut them. That's going to be where you're going to sew them. But so we have this one here that has 4 pockets. So we have one pocket here, and then we have a pocket here and here and here. So because that was a whole page of paper, I have 2 of those because I cut them in half. And then I have 2 that have 2 pockets, and they're also on each side because when you sew it, you're sewing both sides. So you wind up with 2 pockets on this side and 2 pockets on that side on this one. So these are, they used to hold, I think they called them floppy disks or something when computers first came out. And so there's little pockets here and a bigger pocket here. And I had picked these up at a secondhand store, so I threw those in there. And again, they were a full sheet. I just cut them in half. And so they fit in there really well. I had enough to put 3 in each of my binders. And then this is one that was like to hold pictures, like 5x7 pictures with this piece on the side. I'm not exactly sure. I think maybe to write on. So, but what I did was, because the holes don't line up, so you just take a piece of like cardstock and put it on here and make a mark where your, I thought I had it here. Here it is. This was like what some of the binders, and this was 8.5 by 11 top loading scrapbooking paper. And so it had an actual piece of paper in the middle already. But this, again, I got it at a secondhand store. I normally pick all of these up at a secondhand store whenever I see them because I use them a lot. So I just took this and made it the size of what was going to fit in my book. And then I made a mark where my 2 binders were. And then I punched a hole. Now, through the course of punching the holes I have 8 binders here. And of course, I had to adjust the holes. Even though the dividers have holes in them already. This one has a hole here and here and here. But when I line this up, it actually needs to be punched here and here, and then line it up down here, punch it here and here. So I had to re-punch it to make it fit in the binder that I wanted to use. So if you want to use a smaller binder, let's say your binder is skinnier, you can just sew right down here and then just cut it off. And, and then put, if it's this large, put the whole thing in there. If it's a little shorter, just make it as long as, well, I have one here. So I have this book because I like binders. So I also pick up binders when I find them. So this one, actually these holes do line up. I would need to trim this at the bottom and at the top before I started doing any sewing. So the top we would want open, but the bottom we would have to remember we would have to sew that shut because we're going to trim it off. But then also I would trim it right about here. So my pockets would only be this large. but I would be able to fit them in this binder. So remember, you can adjust them any way that you want to. It doesn't have to be a regular size binder. And so the first thing you're going to want to do, if you have a binder you need to adjust for, is go ahead and make sure that you just get a template made for that. And because I did it over and over and over and over, obviously you can see my holes didn't necessarily line up that well. And then here is one that I showed you, number 2, that was empty. So here's the first one, and I thought in this one I thought I would put stamps. And so I took my stamps from where they were in a different binder that I want to use this new system. So I put them all in here, well, some of them, and then I got to thinking that then I have, just like the other one that I showed you, I've got the bigger size, and then I've got the floppy disk size, and then I've got the full, like, 5x7 size, or whatever size that is. And I got to thinking, and I thought, I don't know that I really want these bigger ones in here, because I really don't have bigger stamps. So I think what I might do is put these 2 bigger ones in a different one of my binders, and take the 2 small, because this has 4 pockets, so take the small pockets out of the other one, put them in here, and take this one out and put it in there. Now, I think I might leave these here because they do have small pockets at the top, so I could put stamps there. But if I do have anything bigger that I want to consider in my stamp binder, I do have a few bigger pockets there. And then I think that I will take this pocket out because I don't see this working for stamps at all. But it will work for larger pieces of ephemera. So I'll just take it out and stick it in one of the other binders. So sometimes when you start something, like I said, I made all of these exactly the same. And then afterwards it was like, oh, maybe that wasn't the best idea. So here's another one of the tips of when I said things that maybe you might need to adjust. See, these fell out when I closed it. And the reason they did is these pockets are really just a touch too small. Mostly like the ones across the top might want to fall out. So I have 4 pockets on half a page of paper here. I think the next time I would make it into 3 pockets instead of 4, because 4 is just not quite big enough to hold the stamps in there. They're a little too loose. The stamps really stick out the top. So next time I would make 3 pockets instead of 4. That is the one thing but last time that I did it, I made 5 pockets. They were really too small. So you just have to kind of play around with it and see how it works for you. So see, because this pocket is a little bit short, they kind of want to move around a little bit more than I want them to. But it still works just fine. So that's what we're doing. And so the first thing that I did was I drew out lines on a piece of paper as to where I want to have my pocket. So like I said, this one, for what I did, I was able to cut it in half and do 4 pockets and 4 pockets. Because you want a piece of paper in your page protector that gives you double sides, and so it gives you twice as much storage. And and then this one I did 4. So I was able to get 2 pockets on each of my little binders, or 4 pockets on a full-size binder, but 4 pockets on both sides. But you only need to put the lines on one side, because once you sew across it, the sewing goes all the way through, and so then you'll have a pocket on each side. You don't need to put a line on each side. If you have a copy machine, then you can copy as many as you want of each one, and if you don't, you'll just draw out however many that you want. I am going to punch these and put them in my binder. Easiest way to punch them, because I'm using a regular size binder, so I can just use this page protector and just punch where those holes are. And I'm going to put these in the back of my binder so that whenever I want to make some more of these pockets, I will have these already drawn out, and then I can just either copy some more or I don't know what I was going to say. So I can copy them again so I can make more. But I think what I'm going to do on here, whoops, I'm going to grab this pencil, and I'm going to try 3 pockets per half. So that would be the half a sheet is right here. So instead of having 4, I would just have 3 pockets and 3 pockets. So that will remind me next time. Because like I said, before I made 5, I did 10 altogether. Those were way too small. They were like an inch each. And so that made them just too small. So once you get those all drawn up, then you are just going to take your copied one and you're going to put them into your binder before you sew, obviously, because then when you sew, you'll wind up with 2 sides of pockets. So then after you've done that, so here's one that's all sewn. We'll have to open this up, but first I'm going to just show you, because I sewed this with a sewing machine. And if you don't have a sewing machine, which we don't have one in our series, but I did want to just show you that you can, but you can also just do it by hand. This is a piece of our dyed string. And I have 2 pieces here. This has 7 threads. So I have 2 of those threads on here. And I'm just going to come up right where that line is. Whoops, right at the outside of the page protector. And I'm going to do about 1/2 inch stitches. Because they don't need to be tiny. They just need to basically hold this paper together. And because you are... you know, you've got a stitch on each side. You don't need to worry about anything falling out. This is going to be tight. It's a solid line of stitching all the way across, and it is going to hold this together. So the reason I used the 2 strings instead of just 1 thread of regular thread is just because I don't want to accidentally nick the thread that I've sewn when I'm cutting these pockets apart, and then the sewing would come out because it's all hand sewn. And so if you nick that thread, it's going to cut it in half. And so this way I figured there's 2 threads here. If I nicked one of them, it would be okay because the other one would still be there. And on the top one, I actually did 3. But because there was 7 threads, I decided that I would just take the 4 that were left and use 2 here and 2 here. And I didn't have to cut another piece of the string. And you're just going to do this all the way across. It takes a few minutes. But now this is one of the needles that we got in our stash. And it does not have a point on it. So it's a little harder to push through. If it had a point on it, it would be easier. But it still works well. I mean, we're talking a couple pieces of plastic and a piece of paper. So it's still not that hard. And you're just going to continue all the way till you get to the other end. Oh, I did have a knot in my thread. So when I came up through this side over here, the thread was knotted at the end. So that caught it to stop it right there. And I might even be making these a little bit bigger than bigger than I did here. But the thing is, unless you've got something that's smaller than those stitches, there's no way it could slip out. If you had something that was smaller than those stitches, it could possibly slip out. But that would be something awfully small. And then it literally would have to still be in exactly the right place and I don't even know, maybe be shook or something to get it to fall out. So this is going to work just fine. So when you get to the end, I always leave just a little tiny bit at the end there. And so then what I do is I just go around the paper and come back up again. Instead of going up and down, I'm going to go around that end and put a stitch like that. Oops, I'm going to loosen this up a little bit because my tail was getting right there. Okay. So now that I've gone all the way around, now I'm just going to, because that goes around, I'm going to stick my needle through there. Just kind of give it a pull, and then I'm going to do it again, and this time I'm going to knot it. And I'm going to do that a couple of times, a couple of knots to make sure that it stays nice and tight. And pull it tight, but hold your paper and stuff while you're pulling. Just tighten that knot right up and then just snip that off. And there we go. Now we've got that. So now we have a pocket here and a pocket here. But the other pockets we can't get to. So now we have to cut it. And this is the biggest thing. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm cutting the top of the pocket or something. More than once, I have cut above the stitching. Well, then what does that do? If I cut above that stitching, this is just a piece of plastic that cuts right there and I can put my hand all the way through. I need it to be below the stitching. So remember, cut below the stitching. And so what I do is I use my X-Acto knife and I just put a little cut in the paper and make sure that you don't cut your thread or your knot that's on the other side. So I'm just going to put a little cut right here, probably 1/8 of an inch or so down from the top, and make a cut that's maybe 1/2 an inch, just big enough so that I can put my knife in there between the plastic and the paper, and then I'm just going to run that knife. Well, you could also put your scissors in here. I have a hard time with the scissors, but you want to be on top of the paper because you don't want to cut that paper all the way across. You want that paper to stay attached. So just take your knife. I'm trying to remember exactly how I was doing this because it took me a while to get the, okay. You kind of want to stand your knife up a little bit and then just run it underneath the stitching. It's going to be the top of your pocket under the thread. No matter whether you sew it or what, under the thread. And so there we go. Now there's our pocket. Now sometimes that's a little hard to get a hold of. So then what you're going to do is you're just going to take your scissors and just kind of cut a little, like a smile here. Just a swoosh. Down towards the middle and then up on the other side. And so, I don't know if you can see that, but it just kind of goes right there. It just makes it easier to get a hold of than if it's flat. And you can punch just a little half punch there, but plastic is hard to punch. So if you want to do that, take a piece of paper and stick it in there and then punch it, because the punch will punch the paper better and the plastic will punch with it. So now that we made that little 1/2 inch cut there, if we flip it over, that 1/2 inch cut is on the other side also. So we're going to go to the other side, put our knife between our paper and our plastic, and then we just need to get it started. There we go. And then just run our knife. And it doesn't come out super even, and that does not bother me. This is storage. You can be much more careful with it. I'm going to cut it off. Like I said, I'm going to cut that little smile in there. So just go to the end, just like that. And then I'm going to come in with my scissors and just kind of cut it a little bit of an angle, swoop down just a little bit, and then go right back up to the other side. And there we go, we've got that there. I do it at the top also, because the top is just as hard to get a hold of as the others are. So we're just going to do it like that. And like that. So now we have a pocket there and a pocket there. And again, we'll just put another, we'll cut it here. And we'll cut it here under the thread. Remember, under the thread. And then when you go to cut it, put your knife between the plastic and the paper so that you don't cut the paper any more than what you've cut right there. When you first cut it, you do a 1/2 inch and cut all the way through all 3 layers. And I have got a lot of paper under here. And sometimes it's a little bit tricky getting your knife between that plastic and the paper. But if you just put it down under the paper, which is where it wants to go, and you cut across that, you're going to cut all the way across the paper. And then you're going to cut the plastic on the other side too when you flip it over. And then the whole thing will be floppy, because you will have cut through the plastic, the paper, and the plastic all the way across, so there will be nothing to hold it together. The paper is what holds it all together once you cut the plastic on both sides. So we're just going to run this one right across here. And again, like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. And you can stop right before you get to the edge too if you want to, so that you're not actually cutting the plastic all the way. See, and because I use the knife like this, that's why I liked the heavier thread. But there we go. Now, if I wanted, I could have stopped back here just a little bit instead of coming all the way to the edge, because now when I flip it over, I'll cut it all the way to the edge too. And then just go in and cut your little smiles in there. Because cutting that little bit off, just like that, is going to make you happy. When you're trying to reach down in there and get different things. So there we go. Pocket here, pocket here, pocket here, pocket here, and then when you flip it over, pocket here, pocket here. And when I finish cutting, there'll be a pocket there and a pocket there. And then you're just going to take them and stick them in your binder. Just like that. So, I love the way that these work. And, you know, they're just so easy then to just flip through and see what you have. And with the other system that I have, I'm going to do like stamps in one and flowers in another. You can even do that, especially if you can find some of the smaller, like 1-inch binders, and just maybe put like 4 pages in each one, and do flowers in one, and butterflies in another, and stamps in another, and make your pockets accordingly. So, just a really quick way, I'll show you how you can make your own stamps if you don't have any. I just have a piece of paper here, and I've lost the dictionary for the series. It's here somewhere. I'm sure when I clean, I will find it. But, you know, there's a nice picture right there. But as of right now, I don't know where it is. So I just grabbed one of my other dictionaries, because we do have a dictionary in our series. And I'm just going to take some of the pictures. The dictionary pictures work perfect. And normally, they're a really good size to use for a stamp, because they're never really huge in a dictionary. In an encyclopedia, they're much larger, but in a dictionary, they're pretty small. So I'm just going to, and this is the tear ruler that we made. That just gives it a little bit of interest. And underneath of this is the name. This is for embroidery. So that's a little embroidered bit. I leave that on there. You don't have to, but I think that that's kind of cute. Let's see if any of the pieces that I just tore out have anything I might want to. Oh, look, there's an emu. Emu. I'm going to take that too. And so you can just, and then you keep these bits for collage. And if you don't want to hold them in a container, grab a piece of paper, and when you're doing this, when you're done, throw it all onto a piece of paper and make yourself a collage right then and there, and just put it in your stash, and then you've got it for a background or whatever you might want to use it for. So then once you get those done, you can ink around the edges and, you know, give them some color. We're not going to do color right this second because I'm just going to glue them down onto our paper. And I kind of put them on the paper because I'm going to cut them off so I can put them in my book. I put them on how I think that they will work best. So a lot of times I'll do them sideways like this. Because some of your pictures are smaller. So like these two are tall. So I put them sideways. And then when I wind up with one of those smaller ones, it can go up and down right here. I could probably fit 3 up and down ones there. And so that way I'm using all that paper. And then you just take your tear ruler. And normally, I forgot. What I usually do is, the first thing I do is I go down here and try and see where that edge is. And I use my tear ruler to tear the paper on the end. Because you need about 1/2 inch or so to really to hold it down. So now it's going to be hard to tear this one along this edge because I put my pictures too close. But we'll pretend that that's all torn. And so then I'll just tear it here like that. And let's see, maybe I can tear it here. Let's do this first. Because I like to have all 4 sides with a little bit of the white or whatever color you have on there. I do tan a lot. Just because to me then it looks a little vintage. Let's see if we can make this tear. If we go really slow and push up against the ruler. There we go, we did it. And let's get this top part too. Okay, just like that. And then we're going to tear between the two. Now, if you have any stamps with numbers or anything, you could put like 2 cents on there. Or you can just do it with your own, like, pencil. Or you could do it with a pen. Just like that. And then you can go ahead and ink the edges. Just like that. Yeah, a little bit of white sticking out there, so I'm just going to take that off. There we go. So there is our own little homemade postage stamp that we can put in our binder. We can use our, not thinking right now, our affirmation flowers work really well in here. This holds them nice, and you can kind of spread them out so you can see what words are on them. And, you know, it works great for stamps. The stamps, you know, you can put in the shorter ones. But again, like I said, maybe 3 to 1/2 page would give you just a little bit more room for your stamps. And, but yeah, it works great for tea cards and, you know, just anything that you have that's just little bits. Like I used to throw them all into a container, and I liked it that way. But now I'm getting to the point where I don't. Now I'm getting to the point where I'd prefer to grab something and flip through it and see what I have. Like doing it this way and just being able to flip through. Well, that one doesn't have anything in it, so that doesn't do me any good. But I kind of think, in this way, I've divided it by, these ones are like postage stamps out of a postage book, and I just colored them with translucent coloring so that I could see through it. And so I did those there because they were the shorter ones. And then I did like red and then orange, yellow, green, because I didn't have as much orange and yellow. But then if I have a project that I want it by color, I can look at by color, but if I just want stamps, then I can also just grab this and get stamps. So I was thinking originally when I did these and I did all the different sizes, I was thinking about putting my red stamps and my red affirmation flowers and my red tea cards and, you know, all of those things in one binder and make that my red binder. But then I thought, no, because usually I more think like, oh, I want to put a postage stamp, or I want a butterfly, or I want a flower. So then I don't have to say, well, I want a red flower. Because sometimes I think I want a red flower, but then as I'm going through my flowers, I really wanted a pink one or a yellow one. It looked better, you know. So I'm going to do it by subject instead of color. But you can also do them by color. Do every page a different color of all your different things, because you might not have a whole page of stamps or whatever. So you might want to do just your red stamps and your red flowers and that type of thing. So that is our project for today. And here is just another, I'll show you a whole sheet of, here's a whole sheet of basically my own handmade stamps. I just haven't ripped them out yet. But these are all just dictionary pictures, and I just put them on there. And I inked around the edges of those. Put them on a tan piece of paper that I had filled in the background. And I will rip these out then and put them in my stamp binder. These are homemade stamps, but to me they're still what I would call a stamp. If I was looking for something like this, I would look in my stamp binder. So there we go. That's what we have for today. I hope that you enjoy this project. If you make this yourself, I hope that it works for you. Storage is always one of those things where you just have to figure out what works for you, because what works best for somebody else is not necessarily going to work best for you. And if you only have like small shelf space where you can put a binder, but you can't necessarily put big containers, you know, then this might work good too, because you can just slide it up onto the shelf and, you know, and it's there and you can reach for it and, you know, and pull it down when you need it, but instead of having it in like bowls that, you know, take up a different type of space. So thank you very much for stopping by. I really do appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.